visited it helped their mind engaging but most important thing is you should try to turn your mind towards practices and positive practices in your daily life. And likewise, it also means that when you are reciting certain prayers, you may look literally, your mind may be directed towards the positive way of life. But as soon as the recitation of the prayer is over, your mind may again return back to normally engaging in negative aspects. So that is not the wholehearted practices. Always sitting and praying a lot, discriminating between what is to be done and what should not be done. Such alertness should be maintained when you are sleeping. When you are dreaming, in other words, you should try to use the whole 24 hours into a positive life. Try to channelize your energy in such a way so that even in dream you are thinking about positive of life. That is the meaning of real Dhamma practice.
क्या कोई समय या स्थान निर्धारित होता है?
In order to lead such a life through 24 hours, training your mind, investigating your mind, which direction your mind is going, and through such investigation and analysis, when you find your mind going towards the negative direction, you should identify it. Because it is extremely important to immediately put a check on such a negative in such a case, what is important as immediate step is not to let yourself be controlled by negative afflictive emotions. Try to follow a process in which you are not being overwhelmed by negative afflictive emotions. At that stage, you will not be able to put out counterforces eliminating the afflictive emotions. But you can engage in practices in which you do not allow yourself being overpowered by negative afflictive emotions. In order to be able to do so, you must have a thorough understanding about the negativeness of the afflictive emotions. You should know that it is the afflictive emotions that you state of the mind, which is your real enemy, which is your strong enemy, which brings suffering, which brings downfalls. We are so strongly habituated with negative emotions, and even though if we are overpowered by negative emotions and have strong habituations with negative emotions, at the same time, in the innermost of your mind, you must make a determination that I will not let my mind be lean by overpowered by afflictive emotions. It is in this way that you should not voluntarily accept the dictates of afflictive emotions. If you are able to do so, you will be able to at least reduce the growth levels of the emotions. And this means that, for example, if you are a practitioner who does not voluntarily let the afflictive emotions invade your mind, then through this process, you will be able to gradually reduce the growth levels of emotions and then the subtle levels of afflictive emotions. On the other hand, if you let the afflictive emotions, on the one hand, grow because of external or external situations, and at the same time, give a warm reception and welcome to the emotions, voluntarily accepting the emotions, then there will be no occasion, no way to restrain the afflictive emotions. So So therefore it is extremely important to try to present the mind that you do not express the affective emotions through body, speech and mind. That is the process of how to what are the negativeness of the affective emotions? There are countless negative deeds of the affective emotions. Countless negative actions. If we summarize the major negative actions, and then physically, stealing, sexual misconduct, verbally stating harsh speech, idle gossip, lying, and it is covetousness, harmful intention, and wrongdoing. Engage in such negative actions. For example, if you take a human being, genius also is illegal, and you will be imprisoned. Likewise, if you still also it is illegal, and then if you engage in sexual misconduct, that also is illegal. Likewise, divisive talk, harsh speech, telling lies, these are not welcome in society, and if you engage in such life conduct as gossip. So therefore, engaging in the 10 non-religious actions temporarily is also not suitable from the worldly problems and also from the religious point. These are negative things. So if you engage in such virtuous short time, less prosperity, less wealth, and so forth. So therefore, the best way of restraining the emotions is not to virtuously move forward by this 10 virtuous actions. So that is the first step which we must implement. As a second step, you should rely on the counterforces. And it is through this way you should try to eliminate the delusions of affective emotions. Here now the question is whether you can remove or eliminate the afflictive emotions or not. Afflictive emotions like anger and attachment, these are not the natural part of the mind. These negative emotions are in the very nature of the mind. Then it is not possible to eliminate these afflictive emotions. They can be weakened to a certain state, but they cannot be completely eliminated. Now the question is, it's extremely important therefore to investigate and reflect whether the negative afflictive emotions are very fundamental part of the mind. And then there are certain traditions which say that negative afflictive emotions are in the very nature of the mind. So therefore, liberation is not possible. And then there are other traditions which says that liberation is actually a physical state. And it is not a state of cessation of the negative afflictions of the mind. But in Buddhism, it says that for the top, the fundamental truth, the fundamental truth can be classified into two levels, the pure class and the impure class. The pure class experiences only sufferings and the process of sufferings, which refers to the afflictive emotions. And then on the pure class, we have the true path, which leads to the true cessation of the sufferings and afflictive emotions. So this whole instance about the possibility of removing the afflictive emotions and the results which are being brought forth by these afflictive emotions. It is therefore possible to achieve cessation, which is the state of total liberation from afflictive emotions. So you have to understand the possibility of achieving nirvana one should upon the principles. So it is particularly crucial to understand the true cessation, which actually refers to liberation. That such cessation is possible as a phenomenon of thought, possible by what process and by following which path. Ignorance, we are unable to see the reality. It is because of this we always try to see something which is not the reality. So there is this gap or the discrepancy between the appearance and the reality. And it is because of this discrepancy between the appearance and reality that we are always confused. We are always deceived. And we always go in the wrong way. So now it is extremely important to reach this care and try to remove the ignorance. All problems come from wrong mind, which basically is rooted in ignorance. Ignorance has a counterforce, which is a mind or wisdom, understanding of reality. And when you depend on this mind or wisdom, understanding truth or reality, it is possible to remove the ignorance, and it is through the ignorance and thereby remove the emotions that it is possible to achieve a state of cessation of this afflictive emotions, and it is through this way that you achieve what we call as nirvana or liberation. So therefore it is extremely important for us to understand that the afflictive emotions do exist and that these emotions can be eliminated, and there are counterforces for removing these afflictive emotions. And it is through this way that you will be able to understand this wisdom realizing emptiness, by which you will be able to eliminate the ignorance and the afflictive emotions. Because we have the potential to cultivate our wisdom, which is a result of conjoined practice of mind and specific sight. And that practice is based on the practice of morality and discipline. So that means by following or engaging in the emotions are something then we can also prove that the imprints left behind by the emotions can also be removed. It is through the presentation of all of the truths. It is extremely important to gain understanding of the possibilities of achieving liberation from separate existence. And in order to engage into this practice, you must have self-confidence, you must have courage, you must have the determination and the courage, thinking that I can practice, I can do. On the other hand, if you get discouraged, thinking that I'm not so intelligent, I do not have the necessary facilities, therefore I can't do Dharma practice, and that is a great hindrance. Buddha himself has said that the cause is the Buddha nature or the Buddha potential. That means, basically speaking, we all have the Buddha potential, Buddha nature, the Tathagata Dharma. This Buddha potential is within us as an inherent quality. We do not have to cultivate it. It's a fresh quality to rely on certain causes and conditions. It stands before the emotions and the defilements that we have within our mind are temporary, they are conditions. The mere luminosity and clarity of the mind is not defiled or contaminated. So that is the meaning of Buddha potential, which we have as an inherent quality. It is because of the presence of such a Buddha potential that we all long for happiness, we don't want suffering. clearly explained the indication or presence of such a potential in your mind is we all long for something good. We all long for something good. And then the second line says that the condition is the essence of the the subject is and you are also engaging in such a practice, and you also have spiritual teachers and guides who can teach you based on their own experience. Of course, when we talk about religious teachers or guides, they are not necessarily appointed to high thrones. There may be many people who are not so conspicuous, and maybe good teachers, they guide other people through their own experience. And we all have human intelligence, and that is the best condition for being able to do Dharma practice. If we use human intelligence in the wrong way, then that would get good because of destroying the sentient beings, all planets control out. From time immemorial, there are many cases where by using human intelligence in the wrong way, how much destruction is brought about. But speaking from a positive side, the human intelligence has to contribute to the happiness and welfare of all sentient beings. As I just said to you, for example, all the spiritual qualities which we have accepted, which we have spoken about, these are all possible to achieve because of our intelligence. We have a wonderful condition. We are born as a human being with wonderful intelligence. We have also the physical condition of having the presence of the teachers. So therefore, self-confidence and courage is extremely important. Not engaging certain religious practice or meditative practice, we should have self-confidence. The importance of maintaining self-confidence. I'm not asking you to be so confident. And also most of us, when we gain some understanding about the meaning of the religious teaching, we tend to cross question it by thinking that I will practice tomorrow or the next day or the next year or so forth. And when we tend to question it in such a way, it is extremely important to meditate on impermanence. When Buddha taught the will of doctrine and taught the Four Noble Truths, the four aspects of the true suffering, and of the four aspects of the true suffering, the first attribute or the aspect was that all conditions and phenomena are impermanent. And also in the wisdom perfection aspects of the three omniscience about non-existent aspect. That non-existent aspect refers to impermanence. So the best instigator towards the evolution and the cause and condition which would immediately provoke you to lead towards the path of nirvana is meditation or impermanence. Impermanence has different meanings. Here we are not referring to the essence of the first movement and the second movement, but we must reflect on the impermanence, having the meaning that the very first movement is in the nature of disintegration. So normally we tend to think that we practice tomorrow or sometime later, this is a clear indication that you will not be able to practice. This is evident to all of us. If we reflect on impermanence, for example, in 1983, I did college out here. It is more than 10 years before I did college out here. And I see a lot of changes in the environment as well. I see some growth of new plants. At that time, among the people also, at that time we have this most respected, respected circumcision Rinpoche. There's no more here with us. And I was resistant to the concept is also no more with us. And likewise, many families have lost their members. So that is the nature of impermanence. And likewise, we can say that counting from today, 100 years counting from today, all of us will be gone from this earth. That is for sure. We have this indefinite and it is in this indefinite way that the life change. When it comes to achieving a very important goals and purpose, we should not go to destinate. We should try to practice immediately. If it is minor, if it is something which is not so important or not of great significance, then of course you can say that I do it tomorrow or next year. But when it is an important issue, you should not think that you will do it tomorrow or sometime later. In other words, since we have today found this wonderful opportunity to achieve liberation, just while I'm wasting your time thinking that you will practice something later, but you must start practicing immediately.
इस काम को खत्म करके फिर हम कुछ धर्म कर्म की बात सोचेंगे अभ्यास करने के लिए हम कुछ समय निकालेंगे
Introductions to gain some understanding about the way and the teachings. These are kind of supplement teachings regarding the actual teaching of the practices. That I should briefly explain the stages of meditation for those who follow the Mahamudra system. Which means that he will explain this mainly focusing on the mind followers. So we will stop here today.
शुरुआत के लिए एक परिचय स्वरूप किस तरह से कर्म अभ्यास होना चाहिए किस तरह हमारे विचार
Are you satisfied? More time your best to work. You think? Foundation with the direction, signal flowing, and maybe to restore in those places but meanwhile, and new initiatives taken by the local president, but also another condition for this new initiative is taking into exile. Whatever be the case, again, there is a renewed interest in all the Himalayan regions, taking keen interest in religions, past religions, and cultural Taiwan considered initiatives and interest as Songkhabar in the flourish in those areas. Flourish wise and regeneration is taking place. So therefore, we have to identify the foundation. We should all identify restore the regeneration of the Dharma and flourish. So I rejoice with new initiatives taken by the local residents. For a long time, many residents of these areas and because of this, it becomes the responsibility of the Tibetan having to contribute as we can. Trying to do and in the future also we will take such initiatives. Then also we have here a lot of festival plans. You are all brought of not in a Buddhist country. Even though this is the case, but many of you are taking keen interest in the teaching of the Buddha. Specifically, I tell my friends that it is always safe and better to follow one's all the religious traditions, what has been taught in the forefathers. To change religion history involves some risk, some problems. Without any examination, if they first embrace Buddhism, then they might have some problem. Likewise, also the Hindu tradition, later on the Buddhism. I have one Indian who with great interest in of course, in India, great respect for the Buddha. When I was Bhikshu and selflessness, talk about the name of a person, which is separate substantial existence, some problem. When I explained this, she was a little bit shocked. He was shivering because he was earlier accustomed with a person, a considered person with self-sufficient and self-supporting existence. Basically, when I explained the name of divine rising and identification and adjustment, and the meaning itself, the conventional meaning itself, he stopped shivering and he understood the concept. In the initial stage, it was quite difficult to explain those simple philosophical points. So therefore, changing religion is not an easy task. You have to follow the religious tradition of one's forefathers. So most of our Westerners come from a Christian religious tradition background. Say like this, even though this is a similar situation, but if through one's investigation and analysis finds the teaching of the Buddha most suitable to one's and so forth, and through that investigation one makes the decision and the conclusion to follow that investigation. Of course, it is your individual right and individual freedom. Even though this is not case, but what is important here is that after you have adopted a new religious tradition, and a biggest tradition, then after that it is not good to start backbiting your old religious tradition, finding fault with your own religious tradition. Religious tradition like this may be suitable to you individually, but this does not imply that this is suitable to the rest of the millions of people. All the major religious traditions of the world have helped the various mental dispositions of the different people having different mental attitudes. It's good that if you find clever in the teaching of Buddha, apply that this is suitable to everyone. So what is important is, as Lokava had read, that we should cultivate moderation and make the teaching of the Buddha flourish in those places where it did not flourish, and be able to restore the places where degeneration is taking place. Motivated by mind wishing to benefit other sentient beings, we should help flourish the Buddha Dharma.
때 양남과 주에서나 뭐라 때문에 이 주로 나고 주잖아 하고지요 보나 명령을 지나는 주로 부산 상황을 가장 제대로 대만 주를 갖고 만나 야외 미지
嘛是，那他就有这个啥技术，哪里有什么，然后嘛是，我就是这些，主要是什么来讲，上不中，也就是他这是原来嘛来还是钱上不了，就咱的看这个还是这个什么这个人他们个结果没有差别，还有那个我对不起钱，这样是你是这个跑步这里啊，这个囊秀我这里是在那这个有的说法不买了，这边是在那这个囊秀我那这些的结果呢，像他这种他这个是这边做过的呀，这种还要咱们来上面，这个才是去数据上面啊，当然是去先天的方向，这个你这个上面有日这边那上面，那大你在这里，然后在那，然后他们的那个一个是在那。
In such a situation, I cannot understand the concept of the Buddhist concept of creator and so forth.
So when the
both from the business point of view and also from the teacher's point of view, the foundation is communicated. And the attitude wishing to achieve the goal for the sake of all sentient beings. With such a motivation, we should listen to teaching.
और ये किसी क्षेत्र जहाँ पर आज ये प्रवचन हो रहा है ये तो परम सुविधा है.
We'll continue with the text. Those who wish to actualize the all-knowing state extremely fast, and those who possess investigative mind should make deliberate endeavor to fulfill its causes and conditions. Omniscience is the ultimate object, hoping to achieve omniscience is free from all faults and encourages those who possess investigative mind, means the intellect, those who have the intelligence to analysis, investigation, and examination of the process of Buddhahood, those who possess intelligence, questioning whether omniscience is existent or non-existent, or whether these are methods to achieve it. So those people must make a strong endeavor to fulfill its causes and conditions. In other words, one must know the nature of the causes and conditions leading to the achievement of omniscience, and after that one should engage in the practice.
पर यहाँ पर ये कहा गया है कि इस तरह से
When we talk about the state of omniscience, we are not using poetry like this. We are not referring just to our scholar. Generally, the term omniscience refers to mind which knows all objects of knowledge, and it particularly refers to the mind which has the capacity to know what is truth, conventional truth, and ultimate truth at the same time. While one is engaging in strong one-point initiative point, one is able to see both the truths simultaneously.
나 괜히 무슨 저거도 나 괜히 찢어도 무슨 괜찮네. 또 되시네요.
Omniscience principle refers to a state which simultaneously realizes the true
나도
truth.
양보해야지. 그다 괜히 잠깐만 얘기하지. 가서 쓰는 괜히 시간을 가는 괜히 시간 나가. 내가 때문에 회의하는 주말에 잘했다는 나는 시간을 주잖아요. 그다지 간단한 주야지 요새는 세계에서 생존의 가능한 기술이 있잖아요. 이제 계속 사실 소방은 이제 세계 속에 따라서는 유저를 넣어보면 신경 쓰이는 거야. 그냥 게임을 너무 심했지. 게임이야. 이미 지저도 되니까 생각이 들고 어떻게 이거 삼제 잡았을 때 이미 지저도 되니까 이해가 이제 찾아봐야 돼. 이제 생각이 내야 되니까 생각이 제대로 순제대 출구
realizing information and ultimate truth, one is able to give a teaching suitable to the conditions of all the subjects. Therefore, omniscience is referred to merely the position of the quality within the Buddha.
यहाँ पर संकेत के बाद सर्वज्ञता शब्द जो है ये बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण शब्द जो है
Therefore, the text reads that omniscience being produced without causes is something not possible, because it would then imply that everything at all times would become omniscient. Omniscience arises from all possible conditions. Either omniscience that should exist forever, or it cannot arise at all. But this is not the case. Omniscience arises from therefore, instead of relies on possible conditions, and it relies on unmistakable possible conditions. If things were produced without relying on notice and liable to be constructed at any place, then there is no reason why everything would not become Buddha. Therefore, the possibility for becoming Buddha is 1 in 100, and therefore all functional things purely depend on their causes. Omniscience is rarely possible because it cannot be produced at all times, at all places, and that everything cannot be transformed by omniscience. This implies that it depends on causes and conditions. All pure or impure, they all arise by depending on their respective causes and conditions. They arise merely depending on causes and conditions. These are not the result of the motivation of a greater God or an Ishvara. As is explained in Sutra called dependent arising. Things arise from the unmoving conditions, they arise from impermanent conditions, they arise from potential conditions. So three conditions have been explained.
और अब ये प्रश्न आता है कि ये सर्वज्ञता कैसे
Since things depend on causes and conditions, therefore in the case of attainment of Buddha also, it relies on causes and conditions. That cultivated causes and conditions, in fact, causes and conditions achieve Buddhahood, and those who do not achieve complete causes and conditions do not achieve Buddhahood. So therefore, the state of Buddha definitely relies on causes and conditions. Then it says, also out of these causes and conditions, one should cultivate the correct and complete causes. If you practice wrong causes, then even if you work hard for a long time, the desired goal cannot be achieved. So the cause must be unmistakable. Unmistakable is not enough to consider a conceiving unmistakable cause, but one should cultivate complete necessary process and conditions. If you practice wrong processes, then even if you work hard for a long time, that result will not be achieved. This is like trying to get milk from making a home. Also, the result is not produced and all the processes are not utilized. For example, if the seed or any of the plant is missing, then the result, growth, etc. is not produced. Therefore, those designs are particularly difficult to cultivate complete and unmistaken causes and conditions. Even in the case of one gets to drink, to cultivate certain causes and conditions. Right from such a state, everything relies on the collection of causes and conditions. For example, even when you cook up food, if you cook up food with insufficient spices, or if the salt is lacking, and so forth, then you will not get delicious food as a result. And also regarding the concept of using the ingredients like the salt, you must use the right amount of salt. You cannot use 1 cup of salt for a bowl of food. To do so, then you will get salty food which you will not be able to eat. So therefore, the process and conditions must be complete, unmistaken, and their potential should be in equal terms. For example, when we meditate on the view of emptiness, when we speak about the middle path, there we say that if you take too much, pay too much attention to the level of appearance, that would again be a problem. And if you cultivate too much towards the side of emptiness, that would also then lead to the extreme of nihilism. So if you take the wrong step, for example, if you take too much attention towards the level of appearance, that might lead to the extreme of eternalism. And if you pay too much attention towards the side of emptiness, that would lead to the extreme of nihilism. So here you have to practice in a way so that the practice becomes balanced practice, in which you don't fall in one of these extremes, and where you are able to follow the other path, in which you realize ultimate reality of the So it is through such process of evaluating the right process of conditions you are able to understand the reality. The reality of the shunyata cannot be understood through merely pain or relying on some process of So it is based on understanding the realization of the meaning of the true truths that you will be able to understand the subtle nature of conditions. And conditions of the resultant conditions. I, who is like a blind man, is not in a position to explain, but I shall reveal the Buddha's own words, taught to the disciples of the The Buddha here says, for total of the secret doctrine, the root of the transcendental wisdom of omniscience is completion, and it arises from the false and intrinsic thought of Bodhisattva. It is perfected by the spiritual means. Therefore, if you are interested in achieving omniscience, then you need to practice these three: compassion, bodhicitta, and skillful means. So, Amalashila, by quoting the source of the Buddha himself, says that the transcendental wisdom of the Buddha arises from compassion, it arises from countless merits. The countless collection of merit is rooted in the practice of bodhicitta. And if you have the quantity is extensive and the quality that you achieve is extensively
풀래 근데 파워는 거
order to college, and through that,
이제 이 사람이
we
전부
will
무슨
be able
그래.
to collect.
전부 무슨 대학 교사들이 인지를 알아요.
So therefore,
제사는
all
인지예요.
these
제사는
qualities
전부
arises
무슨
from the
거야.
altruistic
제사는
qualities,
인지
which is the
쓰는데
quality
전부
also
무슨
in
거야.
us. And that
어쨌든 이 사람이 전부
altruistic
무슨
quality
싸움이
is rooted in the practice of compassion.
얘네들 인지 싸움들이 전부 무슨
Such a quality is rooted in compassion.
전부 무슨 뒤 오늘 공부 돼야지 시험도
Cause
좋아했어야 돼.
for the good, and such
따라서
quality that
그래도
must
주식이보다
be
전부
accompanied
시선이
or
쏘니
existed in the
다시
practice of compassion.
일선들이 소셜을 그래 특히 연례의 참에 애네요 쌤들이
For example, regarding the explanation of the qualities,
근데 다음에
there are two different classes of qualities
해야
explained, and these are further developed
바로
through
터지죠.
using other
시험을
methods.
다시 중독된 다음에
This explaining methods must be assisted by the practice.
나타도 친구
In other words,
이게
one
전주
is able to
전주세대가
be practiced by the trained
모르시네.
practice method, and this
사진이 도와지
using
싸움이
practice of bodhicitta and compassion. In other words, the practice of bodhicitta and compassion must be influenced by the practice of wisdom, and the practice and cultivation of wisdom must be influenced by the practice of bodhicitta and compassion. So therefore, one should practice these three.
सूत्र से यहाँ पर
성적 변경 보관데 애니 교대진 애들 지금 누구래 했으니 저거에 교대진이 나도 혹시 쉬어야 이게 지식을 누가 때문에 손님이 있어요. 소인데 워낙 애네 사람이 보관 열어봤어. 애네 사람이 보관 섭지기 섭지도 돼야지 애네 룸 하나로 되는 거야. 나도 이게 제가 생각을 해서
Buddha himself.
Now
here a question arises.
그다음에 또 제시는 하나도 선생님 좀 도와줘야 돼. 그걸 이야기해요. 내가 하나도 선생님 좀 도와줘야 돼. 스텝이 있는데 마도 실로도 좀 비슷한 사람 거의 신경 쓸 때죠. 스텝이 되시죠. 근데 이거 이전에 나중에 말하는 스텝이 그다음에 이 다음에 진짜로 제시 다시 스텝이 생기네. 때문에 지금 용어서야 되죠. 운동수야 이게 일단에 나는 지금 참마로 그러시죠. 애들 주민의 소셜을 대인 동호수는 따라서 애들 세미나 신기 어느 기자 나가 시간을 신기 세미나 신기 너나도 세미나 때문에 지금으로 외로울 수도 있고 이게 짜라잖아 너로 짜라잖아 이래지기 때문에 애요 눈호수야 세트 우리가 중간에 내가 살아줘야 이래지기 때문에 살아줘야 되겠지 다시 민국은 생기 그다음 모두 그 앞에 영화에 이게 또 짜라쟁이 있잖아요. 이 영수를 내가 이거를 짜라야 되는 거 그래야 되는 것인가. 사람이 그 이야기를 사람 나도 내가 그거 보면 신도 벗어 보는데 누구를 때문에 내용이 되냐. 나 누구를 때문에 보야 돼. 누구를 숨었어. 중재는 제. 이렇게 하면 하고. 말해서는 얘를 숨으라는 다시 집어넣지 않고 누워서 누워서 이미. 다른 집 너도 공제되고 너도 공제되고 다시 근데 숨도 따라서 내지 이래 다시 집어넣으라. 이거는 이렇게. 이거는 이렇게. 얘가 그래서 우주 접근이야. 나라에 이런 거야. 나라들이 얘네들에다 가서 이게 나라에서 누구도 기억이 있지. 그래야마도 내가 그다음에 나타나는 누구도 되게 어떻게 하나? 리아요. 무슨 의미의 거야? 어떻게 하나? 리아요. 자, 이 상황이 있잖아요. 그런데 내가 이거예요. 자, 이게 제일 이유도 다시 뭐 다시 어떻게 하나 물어. 다시 뭐 이거 샤프. 자, 이 상황이 있잖아요. 룸상 이거 주제는 룸상 무슨 있잖아요. 남자가 어떻게 하나? 자, 이제 이거 룸 하는 것은 얘는 룸 되는 때는 주제가 뭐야? 의견자를 얘기 짜라.
And at the same time, one must be you have to accept blindly.